Hues of Humanity.
A time where we can talk one-on-one.
And learn from someone else's rich and varied experiences.
Come on, dolls. Our differences are beautiful.
Welcome to the Gaily Dose. This is Helmut Domagalski.
And hi, I'm Diane Crow. And this episode is brought to us by AHF. They take care of all of your gay healthcare needs regardless of your ability to pay. So check them out at ahf.org.
That's right, Diane. We're so lucky to have them as a sponsor. And if any of you are interested in being a sponsor as well, give us a little bit of an email at marketing@thegailydose.com. I'm so excited for today's episode because we are going to bring you a dose of the two of us, two queer parents. We're going to learn a little bit more about both of us, our backgrounds that might have an interest to you. And we're also going to talk about what it's like to do this show and why we may be driven to do it because we are both parents. And we're also going to get a little bit of your trans notions.
Trans notions, right? That's right. I've got some really awesome stories for you and news for you in the Trans Notions episode today. So stay tuned for that.
A dose of Daddy Helmut.
Hi, dolls. So tonight, it's pretty exciting for me, actually. And the reason it's exciting for me is I've known Helmut now for maybe a year, I guess, something like that. But I really don't think I know him. And he and I have something very interesting in common. We're both parents, and we're both in the trans and gay world, in this spectrum of people. But to have children in that way, it's kind of different, I think. So Helmut, I've got to tell you, honey, I just love you. I always have.
Aw,
I do, seriously.
I love you too.
Thank you so much. But I don't really know very much about you at all. So here you are, a beautiful gay man standing here in front of me.
Thank you.
And but how did you get here? What brought you here? Tell us, when were you born-ish? You don't have to tell me exactly.
I'll tell you exactly. I'm okay with my age. I'm a 76er, a bicentennial baby. And I was born in El Paso, Texas.
Yeah.
My dad's German. My mom is Latina, with some Native American. She was born and raised in Texas.
Wow.
And cheers.
Oh, thank you. These are amazing glasses.
Aren't they?
Oh, where did you get these?
Thank you.
Wait, table that last thing. I want to know about these.
So I got these glasses when I was leaving Germany. We took our last trip to Venice. I lived there overseas when I was a young dad. I just had my eldest daughter, Esther, and I bought these in Venice.
Oh.
And whenever I pull them out, I think of my eldest daughter. So.
Oh, that's incredibly sweet. You're a good dad.
No, thank you. It's a sweet memory.
And that is a sweet wine, too. I like this a lot.
Yeah, it's a nice little red, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So, I grew up there, and I was oldest of three boys.
Yeah.
And very conservative Christian. But I would say my home was very sweet. So, there was religion, but I would definitely describe my family as like lambs, if that makes sense. Like they really sincerely believed in the words and the teachings, and that's kind of the construct I was raised in. I say,
So we've asked our other guests this in the past. When did you start to have a sense that you were slightly different than the other kids?
It's an interesting question. When I was a young man, I was 5. I remember toying with gender, and I remember getting on the playground, and one time on the playground I thought, well, maybe I have long hair, and I pretended that maybe I was a girl because I was trying to figure out who I was. I knew something was different.
Right.
And I liked the boys more. And I remember I had a friend, Demetrius, in 6th grade that I talked to, and I was just, not 6th grade, 6 years old, 1st grade. And I was like, he would just talk, and I was like, oh, I like him.
Wow.
I really like him. But I didn't identify that as gay. It wasn't until later I was teased so much growing up. And I heard the little kids say it to my family talk about it in Spanish. And they said something about un joto or something. I don't know. Anyway, and I was like, what's that word? So I went to the kids in the playground, and I had them exchange the name. It was gay. So I went to my family, and I was like, what is gay? And it was not good.
Ooh.
And I knew gay was not good, but I knew that's what everyone called me. So at a very early age, I identified I'm probably this way, but it's not good. And I was pretty much teased most of my life growing up about being gay. But I really developed this sense that like, well, how do you know? How do you know I'm gay? I could be anything I want to be. And I really did manifest a lot of my childhood of, I can be a good Christian boy and be straight. And God would never create someone like this. And I'm pretty much quintessential textbook manifested myself straight, right? I really tried to like girls and tried to look at, porn when I was a young man to try to like women, and eventually met a wonderful human that, understood some of that journey. But I thought I could never act on it, right? And I thought that would be possible. And I did a long time, but that was kind of like how that part worked.
So you met a wonderful human. Is that your wife that you had children with?
My ex-wife, yeah.
Oh.
Really just a great person. But, before that, we left El Paso, we moved to Texas, and I studied biomedical engineering, which I think, didn't you as
Electrical
well?
engineer.
Electrical, yeah.
Sure.
So I was a total nerd. I loved being a nerd. But I really wanted to do musical theater when I was little.
Oh, honey, there might be some little clue there that you might be gay.
Right?
I'm just saying, it's possible.
There's this great organization in Houston called Theater Under the Stars, where they would train young men and women to be in the theater. And my mom would take me to all the performances. I loved it. I loved musicals and I loved the theater. And I was like, I want to join this group. And I looked around and there were all these gay men involved, and I could tell. I mean, I could always, my gaydar as a young man was extremely strong.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, if I do this, I'll be gay. Not knowing, no, you're just gay, girl. But I didn't pursue it because I thought, well, I'll be really tempted to go that direction in life. And
like it's a choice.
Yeah. And I really had that thought that like, hey, I needed to like filter these things out and not choose them. But I went to A&M. I gave my passions to biomedical engineering. I really wanted to be a physician. And I actually moved into healthcare, and I liked the tech aspect a lot. And I loved the idea of helping lots of people through the development of software and the development of tools. And right out of school, I got a job that was based in Atlanta with a healthcare company. It was General Electric. Oh. And I was a General Electric baby. So for 10 years, I went to General Electric's kind of school of life, right? And they took me to Europe for 3 years.
Wow. I did not know you worked for GE. I worked for GE too.
Did you really?
I worked for GE Medical.
Get out! Wait, I did too. GE Healthcare. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but they took me to Germany, and this is a cute story. I got to tell this one. This is good. So I'm in Chicago,
right?
And I'm at a marketing meeting, and I'm flirting with the Germans, right? Like we're dancing, and ich spreche total Deutsch, so I speak totally German, right? I totally speak German, and I enjoyed the engagement with them.
Right.
And this gentleman comes up to me and he goes, his name is Gerald Steiger. He's like, Helmut, do you want to go to Germany? And I was like, hell yeah. So they paid for me at age 23 to live in Europe.
Wow.
And I traveled all over Asia and Europe studying their markets. Yeah, it was crazy, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty huge. How long did you stay with GE after that?
I was there in Europe for 3 years, where we had my oldest daughter. And
right.
Cheers. And then, I stayed there for 7 years more with them. They moved me to Chicago.
Wow.
And that's where my other 2 children were born. And what's really, really cool is I really wanted to get a marketing degree at a major institution. And I got my MBA at Kellogg Northwestern, which is a great school.
That is a great school. Hard to get into.
But they paid for it. GE paid for
it.
GE
paid for it?
The whole thing.
Wow.
But I'm going to give you something. Another little unknown thing. When I was, we just had our second daughter. My ex-wife had breast cancer. So we went through that whole period. And I look back, Diane, and I go, how is it possible? I'd wake up in the mornings at 8 a.m. You get on calls all day. I had an infant with me that would help, take care of. You'd get in the car, you'd be on calls in the car, you'd go to MBA class at, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. You get out of that, you drive back in the freezing snow, cold of Chicago, hoping your little cheap ass Ford didn't go off the road or something. And then you worked on school or the baby or work until about 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and then you did it again.
When did you sleep?
Yeah.
And for how long did you sleep?
I mean, thank God I had children young. But it's interesting because, I think back on that, and I know when I talk to you about your story, there's so much work involved with being a parent and the responsibilities as a breadwinner. And yet at the same time, you're fueled to do it out of the love of your family, out of the love for your children, and some love for yourself too.
So when did you finally come to discover your essence of the true you?
Yeah, so I would say a couple things about that. One is that I feel like a lot of our generation was not taught how to talk about sex. It was a very taboo topic.
Wait. Did you say sex? La 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 la.
Yeah, exactly. So we weren't taught how to have these conversations in our friend groups, with our families, even with our spouse. And that's probably the greatest mistake I made in my marriage, was not having those dialogues as you're going along, for fear of all the things.
Yeah.
And it was actually when she had breast cancer, and what you don't realize is when you're going through, and if you meet a couple that's gone through something, both people in the relationship go through that struggle together.
Oh yeah.
And I had this horrific realization that if she were to pass and I have to take care of my children, I might want to marry a man.
Really?
Yeah.
It just came out of the blue like that?
It hit me like a freight train.
Wow.
And I was ashamed, and I felt bad, and I felt like something, that could never happen.
Right.
Could never be allowed. And I kind of stuffed that away in a bin.
Right.
And for 3 years got really big and was unhappy.
Wait, you were really big?
Yeah, I was much, much bigger. Yeah, I was unhealthy. I was overweight.
How much did you weigh back then?
Back then I weighed like I think I got up to 230, and it was like not muscle mass, right? It was just carrying all that.
Stress mass.
And yes, stress mass. And she certainly did not deserve that. I didn't deserve it. Those kids did not.
Right.
When I moved to Atlanta, and I've shared this before on the Gaily Dose, I had a period of time where I was unfaithful, a few months, and discovering all this whole world, and discussed it with her. And then really, really, I wanted to make it go away. I wanted so badly to not have to be gay and not have to leave my ex-wife and have my children be in a divorce situation.
Right.
But it was actually her words where at one point she said, I think you need to go figure yourself out. And it was not easy. Those were some of the hardest days, actually, when I think about it.
I bet they were.
But you know what? I just stuck to the idea I had was be authentic, Helmut. Just keep trying to be authentic. And, it served me okay. I had a boyfriend for 3.5 years, and that was hard because he had to carry some of that, right? And kind of step into that.
Sure.
But I took the lessons I learned from my marriage, and I was honest in the relationship, and we had hard conversations, and we came to a place where he could not be with me. And in a weird way, how life has, I couldn't be with her, he couldn't be with me. I got that, fair share back of heartbreak, and that was okay. Because now I look at it and I grew so much from that experience.
Sure. And so what happened in your life? What brought you to the point to say, I have to pursue this feeling that's deep inside of me, and regardless of where we are, I have to make this happen. So what happened?
Well, I would say it was unnatural to me to step outside of a marriage. I felt a huge amount of guilt and shame because I had really hurt someone and made commitments and not kept them.
Right.
And that ultimately was what drove me to kind of confess where I was. And once that confession was out there, it just felt so much like I couldn't step back on it. And no matter how much and I will tell you something, at that time, I met so many men in therapy sessions, group sessions, that were trying to go back to stay in their marriages.
Oh.
I was so young, by the way. I was like 33.
Yeah.
And all the other people that were, dads coming out often waited till their kids were 18.
Right.
It was sort of a pretty usual thing. And the men constantly were messing up. Oh, I went back to my wife, but then I met Frank at the gym. And, and they would come back in, and eventually they would get divorced.
And then there was a frank conversation.
Yes. And what I realized, I'm a big believer, let's observe. And I realized that as I let go of religion, I said, let's observe reality and make our judgments based upon humans just being humans. And when I could see these men were constantly hurting themselves and their wives, like, this is not wise.
Right.
It's better to let this go and then figure myself out.
Sure. Well, let me step forward a little bit. Once you accepted that you were gay and that you liked men, how did that impact your fathering skills?
So the one thing I'm going to tell you, this is a fun story. I had a straight man who was the first person I came out to that wasn't one of my family members.
Right.
He was a coworker. His name's Barry. My kids still call him Uncle Barry. He walked in my office and he said, Helmut, something's wrong. I get teary-eyed talking about this. He said, something's wrong. I was like, yeah. And he closed all the curtains to my office. And I was his boss and like boss of many, many people. And he was like, you're going to tell me this is a safe space. So this straight dude, right, is like, this is a safe space. And I was like, well, yeah, I'm gay. And for an hour, we sat in that room and talked, and I cried. I mean, I was just like, and he was like, almost one of his very first things, because I was like worried about my kids. I was so worried about my children. Because, like, hello, you're just gay. It doesn't mean you stop loving your children anymore.
Right.
And so he goes, listen, Helmut, we all knew you were gay. Okay? No one in this office is surprised that you're gay. In fact, we were all kind of shocked that you were married. But just because you're gay will not change the fact that you're a fantastic father.
Oh.
And it was just like something about a straight man being the first person I come up to with so much love and empathy. And then I just determined at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be a great dad. I'm not going to let that go. And so, it's interesting because even in the gay fathers groups that I was in, so many people were so overwhelmed with ideas of like, what about me? I need to be free. I need to have my lover. I need to go on parades. And I was like, what about our kids? Like, I was like the one in the group that's like, what about their psychology? I mean, I remember going to a therapist asking how to come out to my kids.
Wow.
I actually took my ex-wife and we sat down and planned the right words.
Oh, that is so smart. Oh my God, I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah, I just didn't want the wrong words. But your kids were older. Mine were so young and I was so scared.
Right.
That I might damage them with the wrong words. So Daddy didn't say, Dad likes boys. What boys are young, right? Dad likes men.
Oh,
and then likes them. Well, but does it mean he doesn't like women? No. Dad wants to date men. Right? So it was really
how did your girls respond to this conversation?
Well, one of them really didn't have comprehension. One of them was playing with their Barbies and was like, cool. And the 7-year-old was far more like, this explains everything. And she cried like a little baby. And it was like she had been carrying all that weight on her.
Oh my.
And but it felt good because then the girls all understood early on. It's such an incredible thing to have children. And I think one thing as a gay parent, you understand how psychologically challenging life can be for a young person because you are different. You know that you're different early. So when you're a gay parent, what people don't understand in the straight community is that you're thinking about the child's psychology, or you can let's be honest. Some gay parents are not good parents. Just
or
like
some parents are not good
yes, just
parents.
like some straight people aren't good parents. But when you want to be a good parent, you're thinking about that psychology. And I would say I've met straight parents that think that way, right? That like there's not just the protection of your child physically, right? And they're going to school and getting the right things, but to also worry about their psychology, right? And that you're saying the right words. And because you guys know, the things that you hear your parents say, they stick in there, right? And that's that first level of software that you get.
They really do.
Yeah.
There are some potent things that my father said to me that I will never forget.
Yeah.
And I can say that they, in some ways, shaped me.
Oh, for sure. There's
some things my grandfather said to me that shaped me, really shaped me, and they shouldn't have.
Yeah, well, that is this interesting thing of being a parent. You basically have this opportunity to truly grow flowers from the ground up. And if you take that on, it is such an honor. It is such an honor to get to grow up the next generation and curate those little lives.
Okay, so some time, how long have you been divorced now?
So I've been divorced for over 12 years.
12 years, okay, that's a long time.
Yeah.
And your girls have grown 12 years since then.
Yes, they have.
Tell me a little bit about what did you do for like vacations and all of those things, and maybe going to events and all of that.
So I got to tell you, I think this is a really weird thing. Maybe it's not weird. It's just what I saw was that gay men often would keep their lives separated. Like those younger fathers would put their lives over here, right? I'm the father over here, and then I go out to the club or meet guys over here.
Right.
And I wanted so badly to put those worlds together. So my boyfriend and I, when we lived together, the girls were there, and they started to see, oh, this is a couple that loves each other, and we can be in that space. When we broke up, I was like, well, I'm not going to stop being gay. I'm not going to stop being me. So I got to tell you, this is a funny one. Yeah. So Pensacola is a big gay beach weekend. Everyone goes down to Pensacola, I think it's Memorial Day weekend, and they have a big party. I went one time. One time was enough for me. It was ridiculously fun. Okay. Yeah. I will not going to lie. But the same weekend, I took my girls to the Redneck Riviera.
Pensacola.
Right. The other side beach. Over the Destin Beach, that area.
Oh, yeah.
Where the gays were not. And I walked out with my little gay ass Speedo, right? You know, the tiny little thing, and my girls, and we're walking on the beach. And of course, everyone's looking at us like, who is this homosexual, right? And it was so proud. I was so proud. Here I am mixing these such different things. People look at me and they're confused. Right? They see this gay dad walking with his tiny little Speedo, and his girls are around. Are they sisters? Are they nieces? Who are these people?
Oh, yeah.
Right? And in fact, one lady even stopped me and she said, I'm sorry, I just have to ask, are you gay? In front of my, at the time, like 10-year-old, right? And I was like, why did you think you could ask that in front of my daughter? And she said, because you're hot. And I was like, that's okay.
That's a good enough reason.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, because you're hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Just about all gay men I know are pretty hot.
Well, we're not all hot.
Well, okay.
And I think actually, no, that's an issue in our own culture, but we've exposed you to some of us in the show that are certainly very attractive.
Oh my, yes. For sure. Oh my God.
But we're not all, and that's so important to embrace in our all of our communities. I did want to say something that's totally side topic that people may be interested in knowing.
Oh, do tell.
My career. So I worked for those 10 years at GE, and then I did 5 years at McKesson, and then I did these stints at major large healthcare software companies, and I was in high-level executive positions trying to figure out how to manage portfolios of $280 million or $100 million of R&D investment. And that was a whole other world in which people are not ready for a gay man to walk in, right? How does a gay man act in a corporate setting? I'm Mr. Honesty. I see through the bullshit. Right? And I see through the emotional intelligence of a woman, but a lot of the teaching of a man in terms of the technology. And it was fascinating I had mostly female leaders, and they were like, it was kind of like roll a dice. Let's throw Helmut in there and see how the men react.
See what happens.
Right? Yeah.
Were they threatened by you?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Because you could stand in front of someone and I'd basically be like, listen, I look like I'm on your team, but I'm not on your team. Right? In fact, I'm on the shareholders team, right? I'm on the CEO's team. And that was true for women. Women were also intimidated by that. Because you just don't fit into a box, right? You're just
and because you're gay, let me see if I understand this. Because you're gay, women don't hold the same power over you that they can hold over men who are not gay because there's no sexual tension. Is that true?
Yeah.
Or am I just imagining this?
No, it's true. There's that aspect, and I'm not the enemy to either side per se, but you could be the enemy because all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. He could perceive as much as I can perceive. So women often, I'm making huge generalization here, gays, so don't kill me. But like women often have an ability to nurture networks, right? And communication, and they see political advantage through moving things. It's great skill.
That's
and they
true.
Can great. But when you're a man and you can do the same thing, now you're an equal in that skill. Whereas they may rule some men out because they think they can't do that, right?
I always found that political side of things to be so challenging and so just mind-boggling that someone would say something to you in a sweet and lovely way and then say something really shitty about you to someone else. And it's like, what? Made no sense to me.
But I do hope that so it was hard in some of those jobs, really, really hard because I didn't fit in. But what I will say is that it's also a sign of the time. So baby boomers didn't feel comfortable being honest. They weren't taught to talk about sex or talk about their mental health or talk about their shame. It just wasn't safe.
Right.
And as we get, the younger generations are more comfortable, and we know truth is the highest love language. When you have truth, you can really love. And when you have truth, you can really run a business. Because you have the honest facts, right? We have a problem.
But don't you have to have a safe space?
You do.
Because if you don't have a safe space, you're afraid to say what's true for fear of the implications or the fear of the retribution.
You do. One of the most amazing things I heard in my MBA program from a professor, he turned to me and he said, he told the whole class, but for me it was in my head. He said, if you cannot leave a job, you cannot do a job. And the idea was, if that safe space isn't there, you need to be able to make yourself an ability to leave so you can say what needs to be said, because they need to hear it. And the good boss will hear it and work with you. And the bad boss will decide it's time for you to go.
Will disregard you.
And so you need to always think about that in a job. I think a lot of people stay in mentally bad jobs because they don't have another option.
Right.
And if you can save that little extra money to just have that option, it's so good.
So that has nothing to do with being gay at all, does it?
No, it doesn't. But I will say, it's kind of like being gay. If you can't be gay at work, right? Find a place where you can be gay. Being honest about who you are is so valuable for your own mental health.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt, actually. Yeah. I have one last question for you.
Okay.
Would you say that you are living your very best life so far?
Yes.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
Because I have led my life authentically. I have fought. I've done my best along the way that I could.
Yeah.
Right now, I am still raising my kids, right? And I'm enjoying them. I have good health. We are doing this show that makes me so proud, even though there are moments that I'm like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're putting your ideas out there. I feel like we're doing something that is honorable. And I just feel like I keep learning more every day. in some way. You've been a part of that journey. You've seen me in some moments in the last couple months that were not easy.
True.
Where I would maybe not have said that answer that way that day.
Yeah. It's true.
But I feel like the gods keep bringing me the right people, and I keep hope that, you know, the next day will be better than the one before. Maybe not that next one. Maybe you'll step back a couple feet and then you'll do better. But I'm enjoying it.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, phenomenal, couldn't ask for anything else, where is your life now on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm a 9 all the time.
Yeah.
If I'm ever, yes. No, there's a few days, okay, very specific days that are 10 days, right? They're very specific.
Right.
Like earlier today, dolls, we were out looking at the sunset. Very simple moment, okay? Very simple moment. That was a 10 moment, right? That was a 10 moment. So there are 10 moments, you know. When I was dealing with the trash bin earlier, it was like a 7 moment, you know? So, yeah, I would say a 9 always, because I think there's always kind of like some area or aspect where I could improve on myself or work better. But I mean, all in all, I have so much to be thankful for that if I'm really, really candid about it, I'm a 9. I mean,
nice.
I am a 9.
Wow.
So.
Well, honey, to that to a 9.
Cheers.
9 is awesome. Well done. Thank you, honey.
Open your hearts. It's Trans Notions.
Hi, girls, or guys, all of you actually. Many of us feel like that we can't make any change or impact on our lives, or our greater lives, or the greater good. It's really hard because we're just one little person, right? Well, I had an experience that really changed that viewpoint for me this week. I was setting up an interview for someone, and on Sunday night or Saturday night, they texted me and they said, I have a friend in Kiev, and I'm trying to get him out. Do you have any ideas? And I was late at night, and I said, I can't think of anything, but I'll see what I can do. So the next morning, while I was lying there in bed, it was the first thing I thought about was, what can I do to help? And so, believe it or not, because I have a show, the Diane Crow Show, I created press credentials for him. I used his photograph and I made actual press credentials for him. And even if someone were to scan the QR code, it would take them to a website so that it verified that he worked for the Diane Crow Show, that he was a journalist. And he was able to have that printed. And, you know, the very next day he was walking around with his press credentials on. And there were a couple of guys from World News Reports, and they nodded to him as they passed. And one of them turns and says, where is your flak jacket? And he said, I don't have a flak jacket. And they said, well, go over to our headquarters. We're over at this hotel. See if they can get you one. He went over there, and they actually gave him a flak jacket that said press on the front of it. And so he's been trying to get out of the country, and he's been able to pass checkpoints all along the way by showing his press credentials. Now, here it is. It's just me in Atlanta, Georgia. How was I able to impact that? You know, sometimes you can really just envision something happening and you can really make it happen. It's astonishing, I know, but it can happen. You are not below anything. You can accomplish anything. And, you know, this whole thing about my show and about being with Helmut and doing all this, no one would have imagined, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago that this could have happened. But it can. And I have always found that if you put it out there to the universe that you just want to help, you just want to be good and do nice things, do the right thing, the universe will do the right thing for you. And every time I do something like that, it just comes around and helps me in ways I could have never imagined. So my trans notion today, boys and girls, men and women, is to don't shortchange yourself. You literally can make a difference. I mean, did you know that you, as a citizen of the United States, have the right to lobby your congressman and senator? You can actually go to Capitol Hill, you can make appointments, and you can be in front of your senator or your congressman and have concrete dialogue with them. They pay attention to that because it's part of their constituency. So don't let it lie, boys and girls, men and women. Be who you need to be. Enjoy who you are. Own yourself. Own your passion. And freaking do it, because I know that you can. We'll see you next time with Trans Notions. Bye, kids.
A dose of Momma Diane. All right, Diane. So I know that you, first of all, I will say, you have been amazing to have in my life these last months that we've gotten to know each other.
Helmut, thank
I
you.
love your mission. I love your love of self. And I don't even know if you know how much your parenting skills have become a part of the Gaily Dose. I call Diane often my trans mama. So just so you know, those skills are super important.
It's because I'm so old.
No, you're not old. She's my sis, really, let's be honest. But let's start, Diane, and understand a little bit about your background.
Okay. I'm an open book, honey. Ask me anything.
So tell me a little bit like where you're from and your early life.
Okay. Well, my mother and father were in the Air Force, and I was born to my mom, of course, and
That's how it works.
That's how it works. Yeah, I've heard that. And my father had to go off to Korea for an unaccompanied tour for a whole year. And when he was returning, my mom had another bun in the oven. And, you know, the numbers don't quite add up.
Yeah.
So he filed for divorce and filed for custody of me, which was unusual back in 1958.
Wow.
58, 59, yeah, because
right?
It was always that the mother got the children unless they were, you know, axe murderers or something. And but my father did get custody of me, but because he was a man, he had to work every day. And so I got handed off to babysitters and grandparents and on and on. And my
and
father.
Where were you? Where were you?
Well,
physically?
I was born in Rantoul, Illinois.
Okay.
At Chanute Air Force Base.
Okay.
But I don't remember because I was just a tiny
Yeah.
nothing, right? And then we were in Kentucky, I think. Yeah, it was Kentucky. And my father found someone else, Connie, who, when she met me, I was 3 years old. And she just told me the other day, and I didn't even really know this, that at 3, no one could understand what I was saying. It was just garble, and I wasn't potty trained, and which is odd at that age. You know, you should have been, but because I really didn't have a mom, I just didn't have that access in my life to that. And so Connie, she became my mom. She still is my mom.
Oh.
It is. It's very sweet. My mom is more lovely than you can imagine.
And she's a lot of other trans sisters' moms too, from what I understand.
She is. I'll share that story with you when we get to like later in life for me. Because girls, I am 63 years old, and when I tell people that, I know when I tell people that, they say you are not, and I say, well, honey, this is what 63 looks like. It's not so bad, is it?
It's not at all.
No,
it's incredible.
It's wonderful.
Incredible.
So anyway, my mom, Connie, had a son of her own, Stephen, who was a few months younger than me. And because we were in the Air Force, my father's in the Air Force, we moved all over the place. And but our one coalescing location was Dothan, Alabama, because that's where my mom's grandparents lived.
Okay.
And that's where she was raised.
All right.
On 1210 South Bell Street, if you girls know where that is.
She's an Alabama girl.
An Alabama girl, yeah. And so, you know, life was good. I didn't. Well, okay, you asked me the next question.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Just with obviously, I know from our conversations previously that you began your trans identity journey later, but in your adolescence and in these years as you go to college, is there any sign of your being trans identifying?
Well,
or even just interested in women's clothing and scents?
That's exactly right. I love the feeling of my mom's fabrics, how soft they were and how they flowed and moved. I love that. And I loved looking at her magazines because I could see the colors of the clothes and the designs of the clothes and the shoes. Oh my God, the shoes were amazing. And if you go into the catalogs, like the Sears and Roebuck catalog, which was a thing that we got all the time, you go through the women's stuff and it's like, wow, beautiful, interesting things. And you get to the man's stuff and it's like, bleh.
So when did you first put on women's garb?
Okay, so this is a little embarrassing to admit, and I've never actually admitted it to anybody, actually. Where we lived, people threw their garbage in sinkholes, because we lived in Florida at the time. And I loved to go through the garbage. I just thought it was fun, to see other people's stuff. And I would find pantyhose. And it sounds awful, but I would try them on.
Why is that awful?
Well, because, they're used, they're gross, and there's that, But when I was a kid, I used to go out into the alfalfa fields and just take off all of my clothes and lie down in the alfalfa and just watch the clouds roll by. And it felt so freeing and so lovely.
Now, you said another transistor did similar, right?
Yes, I heard that from another transistor. I couldn't believe it.
So there's this interesting aspect of texture, this interesting aspect of feeling feminine or something. So you tried on these pantyhose. What's the next time you tried on some clothes?
Wow. Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean, not exact, but ish,
I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember exactly. But I can tell you this. My mom told me just the other day that they had no clue.
Okay.
None. That I was nothing more than just a usual boy. But we didn't talk about gender at all. You're a boy or a girl. That's the way it was. And I was the oldest of four children. So, but I can tell you this, that animals always loved me, and they did not like my brothers. It's true. I used to be able to walk out into a field of Brahma cows and bulls and just walk amongst them, and they didn't pay me any mind, or I'd hop on top of them and I'd reach up and grab the grapefruits and I'd throw it down for them, and they would love those.
Yeah.
But the bulls never bothered me, ever.
Interesting.
Ever. And I rarely ever met an animal that wasn't sweet to me.
So how did you get to schooling and then marriage? Like, tell me what happened there.
Wow, that's a broad
It
thing.
is, because you kind of grow up out in the world and then meet someone, right?
I just didn't understand. There were a lot of girls that wanted to be my friend. I was in the friend zone plenty of times. And I just didn't understand. So, well, why don't you want to, date me or anything? And they said, well, you're really sweet, but I'm just not, into you or whatever. And I was like, I just didn't get it. And again, we didn't talk about gender at all. And I remember the jocks used to just tease me mercilessly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they were cruel and mean.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you.
Were you, would you be described as a sweet young man?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Never.
You are very sensitive. You're very caring. You're very thoughtful. I can see that about you.
But I was never swishy. You know.
She didn't swish and
I didn't sashay. I was just a regular kind of boy. But I hated injustice more than anything. Injustice just used to drive me nuts. I remember one time I was sitting at lunch with my friends, and we were eating lunch, and up came this guy who's a bully. He's a known bully. And
hate those.
He loved to pick on people. And he had his bully buddies with him. And he shoved me in the shoulder. And my friend says, don't do anything. Don't do anything. I said, well, I said, okay. And he shoved me again. And I said to myself, if he does that one more time, that's it. That's it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to take that anymore. So he shoved me one more time. And I got up and I started beating the living shit out of him.
Oh!
I just pounded him around the cafeteria.
Oh!
And he was just shell-shocked, actually. Oh. And I just laid loose on him. And the principal called me to his office, and I told him exactly what happened, exactly like I described to you. And he said, okay, you can go back to class now. There was no punishment for me whatsoever.
Wow.
Right? Because I was genuine. I was honest with him. I told him this is what happened. I just wasn't going to put up with it. And he said, well, okay, you go back to class. So I never got punished for it.
Yeah.
But I always said I would never be mean to other people, ever. There's just no reason to be mean to other people. It's just awful. And so I had this deep sense of internal justice, and I was just compelled by that.
So how did you then develop into getting married? I mean, how did you married her?
Wow.
How old were you? Where were you?
So I was 22 years old.
Such a baby.
I was a baby, and I had joined the Mormon Church.
Oh, that's right.
I had joined the Mormon Church, and as a Mormon, that's what you do. You get married.
And you weren't Mormon before that. You chose into Mormonism.
Yeah, I did. And
well, they like to have babies, and you had 5.
I had 5 children, yeah. But what I came to discover later in life is that I gave no thought as to how the other person treated me at all. It was enough for me to be wanted. It was enough. I was like, okay, I'm wanted. This is good. And as I think back on it, I think it has to do with, my earliest childhood, that it was like nobody wanted me. Mm-hmm. And then if somebody wanted me, that was enough.
And with all the teasing too, you were different somehow.
Yeah.
And maybe these other girls didn't like you because maybe they sensed some aspect of this sweetness or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you finally found someone who liked you.
So I have to tell you this story. My brother, super, super smart, genius, actually. I mean, he never studied for tests. He always aced them. He started college when he was 15 years old. He couldn't even drive yet. He skipped 2 grades of school, to go to college. And I always struggled in school because turns out, this is long before anybody knew anything about this, I was ADD in a severe way. I wasn't hyper, but I was really, and I had dyslexia, still do. So that when it came to math, I could not get the questions right. So I always failed the test. But I generally understood the concepts. Well, every summer we would spend the summer with my grandfather and my grandmother in Dothan, Alabama. And one day, I'll never forget, and I don't remember exactly how old I was, but it was certainly enough to be impressionable. My grandfather said, "Hey, Dwayne," that was my name, "come over here." He's reading the newspaper. And he says, "What is this word?" And I said, "Grandfather, I don't know what that word is." "Stephen, come here. What is this word?" "That's astronaut, Granddad." "That's right, Stephen." And so he said, "Let me see your hands." And so he took Stephen's hands and he held them, and he said, "You have long, slender fingers. You're going to be a doctor." "Let me see your hands, Dwayne." "You have little fat fingers. You're going to be a mechanic." Oh! Now talk about sealing things in. Those are such pivotal things that can be so damaging to someone. My brother thought he was going to be a doctor, and he thought that's what he wanted to be. And he started college way too early, and he ended up going to mortician school for 2 years, and he did that for quite some time. Still super smart. And then me, I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm going to be a mechanic,"
Yeah.
And my father was a very practical man. He said, "Listen, if you go to school, you go to college, you're on your own. Whatever you do, it's on your own." Well, okay. So I joined the Army.
Yes, you did.
I did. And at first I sucked at it because I was in this biomedical engineering program. And by definition, they kick out 75% of everybody that's in it. But I figured out that I didn't know how to study because I was so, if I got C's, my parents were like, "Oh, that's fine. That's all we could expect from poor little mechanic Dwayne."
Because of your ADD also.
Because of my ADD, I remember my mother trying to teach me the alphabet and just completely flabbergasted that I couldn't get past a certain batch of it, Well, anyway, I actually created my own way of counting where I took all the numbers and I just counted the intersections where the numbers went across each other, and I was able to add very quickly that way. And I have since found out that they have actually developed a method that is exactly like that for kids who are exactly like me.
Wow.
So I was like, hey, I might be pretty smart. So when I was in the Army and going to this program, if you had one chance to go back into the cycle, if you failed that chance, they were going to make you a ground pounder or an infantryman. And I did not want to do that. So I found an instructor who's very smart, and I liked him a lot. He's a great guy. But he was also every night at the officers club drinking like crazy. So I would go to his place at the officers club, and I would buy him drinks, and he would teach me stuff. And as soon as I started to get into the cycle of it, since then, I have never been less than first or second in my class ever for anything. So I was actually a whole lot smarter than anybody thought I was. I fixed x-ray machines and CAT scanners and nuclear cameras for 27 years. I worked for GE for years, many years.
Yeah.
I was the director of clinical engineering at one of the major hospitals here in town. And so, yeah, so I was actually pretty freaking smart. I just didn't think that I was, so I never really invested in myself to be that.
It's so interesting just thinking a little bit like you have these young voices, these voices that come in and tell you you're not this, you're not this, right? And then you sort of allow the life to be, and you figured out a way to be exactly what they said you wouldn't be.
Well, that's great for some of us, but some of us never get past that.
I know. So that is an achievement that you've certainly made.
Yeah.
Now, then you took your career and went from...
Yeah, I made a big change.
Wait, hold on. I got to ask one question there.
Okay.
You have these kids in that time period.
Right.
Were your kids like, did you fall into the classical model where like mom takes care of babies, I go out? Like, were they very strict roles?
Well, oh my gosh. Okay, so when you are, what's the word? Sensitive, I guess, or tender. And you just accept what anyone gives you, the little crumbs you get, you're happy with. And so if someone's interested in you, that's enough. You don't give any thought to, how is this person treating me? You just don't, or at least I didn't.
Right.
And so I married someone who was quite a narcissist. And wow, it was awful because she wouldn't really clean up or take care of the kids really. And I'd be off working and doing my thing, and I'd come home and I'd end up washing dishes and, washing clothes and stuff. And I didn't mind because I figured, this is all part of a relationship. Right. That's what you do. You help,
So you were a significant servant in your home.
I was super servant.
For those children as well.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
for sure.
That is, that's a blessing to them. For you to have served them that way is quite
thank you for
beautiful.
Saying that.
Well, it is. Not, a lot of parents don't do that for their children.
Yeah.
You have to celebrate those things that you did do. That speaks to your character. So then you're having these children, you're working very, very hard.
Oh, yeah.
You decide to change careers completely.
I did decide to change careers. I had a couple of stops along the way. I was having this sort of midlife crisis kind of thing. And I had divorced my first wife, and I was managing pizza restaurants. I decided I wanted to get into stand-up comedy because I thought, well, maybe I can, And so in order to get my stage presence skills up, I don't think you know this about me, I would deliver singing telegrams for Monkey Business Singing Telegrams. I was basically a stripper on Friday and Saturday nights. I made a boatload of money doing that.
Oh my gosh.
Did you know that? Did I ever tell you that?
You alluded to it. I didn't know you were a stripper. I think this is hilarious. You're like military, biomedical engineer, electrical engineer, camera, comedian. I mean, bitch, you could do it all. That's amazing.
I took some classes on comedy and on improv, and I for 2 years traveled the Southeast, performing in clubs. And my big crowning achievement was opening for Gallagher for a week. He was the guy who had the Sledge-O-Matic with the watermelons that exploded and stuff. And he was a very, very nice guy. But what I did find is that so many of my comedian friends were turning into alcoholics.
Yeah.
Because when you're, out in butt-lick nowhere, there's nothing to do but see what's on TV, and it's like, oh, that sucks. Oh, that sucks. Oh, it's just a constant thing.
Yeah.
And when you get to the club, they let you drink as much as you want because they think you're going to be looser and funnier.
And you just drink a lot.
And then my next wife had met me, and she wanted me, right? And so that was enough. And so I left comedy and went back into engineering.
So did you, I am curious about the trans experience with this. Is there any point in these marriages or with the children, is there any point in there where you're doing something like ever putting on women's clothes or ever? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So is that something that happened during the first marriage?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is this something that was like a secret, shameful?
Totally.
Sort of? Okay.
Totally.
And what would you do? Just would you go to her closet or buy other things and you just put them on secretly? And
Yeah. I mean, if she was gone, if my wife was gone, I'd look through her closet and go, and I'd try it on. I look better in this than she does. Honestly.
wow.
I would go, wow, this looks good. And then I would feel so shameful about it. And swear to myself, oh, I am never going to do that again. No, bad. Remember I was a Mormon at the time back in those days. And even after that, once I left Mormonism, I would try on my wife's clothes, my second wife. And I thought, man, I look good in these. This feels good. Oh, I love this. And then racked with shame, I would say, I swear I'm never going to do this again.
And I bet you felt shame, and then you go back to do it again, enjoy it, shame. Did you become Jewish? I thought no.
I never actually became Jewish. My second wife was Jewish, and we agreed to raise the children Jewish. And so I agreed that we wouldn't celebrate Christmas, that the girls would be raised Jewish, which they were. And for 27 years, that was basically my religion of choice was Judaism.
Yeah. So in all of this, I know that you came out in the pandemic. We've talked about on the podcast before. I'm curious what you would say were the things that led you to that point.
Oh, well, that's pretty easy, actually.
Because you went from the shame cycle to then this.
Okay. So being ADD, I have an awful relationship with time and with organization. It's just the worst.
It's true.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful, but it's really a genuine thing. I mean, I just don't. Time is a construct I don't exactly get, and it doesn't really come naturally to me. So if you were in my house, you'd see clocks everywhere. Every wall, there's a clock, and it's a constant struggle for me to remain on track. Anyway, I went to a therapist. And I told my therapist I'll never forget the first day I went there. I told my therapist, I said, I just want you to hypnotize me so I'll be more organized. That's all. It's driving my wife crazy. I really want to be more organized. So can you do that for me? And she was thoughtful enough to go, maybe, but let's talk some more. And over time, I discovered things about myself. She never ever suggested anything or anything like that. But I discovered things about myself, and I began to be more honest with myself and start to discover who I was inside.
Yeah.
And she's still my therapist every week. On Thursdays at 1:00, that is where I will be, is in front of her.
And in that process of like self-discovery with her, is that where you eventually get to acceptance of the clothes?
Sort of.
Okay.
Here's what happened. So as a commercial photographer and videographer, I had an opportunity to do a pro bono job for an LGBTQ group here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they were honoring Bex Taylor-Klaus, who's an actress. She's non-binary. And as soon as I heard about it, I was like, I volunteer. I want to do it. I photographed her bat mitzvah and all of her families and on and on and on in this big circle. And so I went to this Purim off Ponce is what it's called. And I had no idea what to expect. But I was wearing my ubiquitous black shirt, black pants, black shoes, the photographer's garb. And I walked in there and everyone was just like, they had such great costumes on. And they were so vibrant. Yes, vibrant. And I met my very first trans woman. And she was dressed as Marilyn Monroe. And she was so open and so honest and so genuine. And I looked at her and I said, "You are beautiful." And I really meant it.
Yeah.
As a photographer, I learned to never, just to never tell somebody a disingenuous compliment. I just wouldn't do it. But I meant that. I meant all my compliments I have ever given. And so I realized that I was like the deep, dark, sucking hole of sad depression in this room. And
In black.
in black. And I said, "You know what? If I get asked to do this again, I'm going to do something different. I don't know what it is, but I am going to do something different." So the very next, this is in March, January, February. Yeah, it was in March of 2019. In October of 2019, I was asked to do it again for Kenny Blank, who's being honored. He's the son of Arthur Blank. And I said, "Well, yes, I'm going to do it." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God." And I'd been thinking all along, all throughout the year, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And so I said, "I am going to go in femme."
Okay.
And I told my wife that, and she says, "You're going to go as a transvestite or as
Woman?
a drag queen?"
Yeah.
I said, no, I'm not going to go as a drag queen. I don't want to insult anyone, or I just want to go feminine. I think that would be a lot of fun. She kind of did not like that, to be honest with you. But she, anyway, I don't want to talk about that anymore. However, I did go in femme that night, and I was no good at putting on makeup. I looked like a clown when I put on makeup. It was awful. So I went to Sephora, and they did my face. And I went to this thing, and I swear I have never felt so loved and so appreciated. And it was just so reaffirming and reassuring and so lovely. I mean, there were men who I knew who came up to me and said, "You look amazing." And there were lesbian sisters who came up to me and said, "I would date you in a second." And as a man, you don't get compliments. It just doesn't happen. And to feel that confidence and feel that, it was wonderful. It was really self-affirming. And it was really good, super good for me.
Yeah.
And as I started to explore that, I was like, wow, it's like an epiphany. And so little by little, I began to accept that I have always been a woman. I was just born in the wrong body. And I'm okay with that. And it's beautiful.
I think it's amazing that you had such a shame-filled experience with dressing in the and I know I've heard you speak before about, these others that you see that suffer, that you get to help them out of their trans closet.
Oh, yeah.
But then you get to go dress up in this very public event and get all this affirmation.
It was awesome.
I mean, it is wonderful. So I'm going to ask you the same question you asked me.
What's that?
Which is, now as you look at your life, are you living your best life so far?
Honey, I am living my best life so far. I really am. Truly, truly, truly. I'll tell you a little story. When I moved from my house of 27 years and moved into my new place, one morning I got up and I went out on the deck and I did my yoga and I did some meditation, and I walked back in the house and I saw it laid out the way I wanted it to be. And then those were decisions that I made. And I just started to weep. I mean, really weep. I wept for an hour because I recognized that I was living who I was meant to be. And it was fantastic. And after that, I went, I had like actual yoga thing, and I had a session with my therapist. It happened to be a Thursday. And then I went and I got my nails done in acrylic. And I said, this is it. This is the last time I'm going to dress as a man. And because it would take a nuclear blast to get those nails off. Yeah. And it was really something. But at that moment, and it's been almost exactly a year since then, and I've been 100% trans since then. And honestly, all of my clients, my family, my friends, except for a few small portions, have accepted me 1,000%.
Well, I will say, Diane, I think that you got a moment there on the porch that a lot of people don't get to have, where you sort of have let go of so much after the yoke of all the marriages and the children. And I can only tell you, it's so wonderful that you've taken that energy and also shared it with so many people with the Diane Crow Show and on the Gaily Dose. I'm going to ask you the scale question.
Oh,
so
okay.
Scale 1 to 10.
Yeah.
How happy?
Oh, how happy?
Was it how happy? Was that the question? Right.
No, on a scale from 1 to 10, are you living your very best life?
There we go. There's the question. Well, and where are you on that?
I'd say I'm about 7 to a 7.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I'd say
good.
that.
Well, you know what? You have.
But the next part of that question is, what would you do to make it a 10?
And?
Well, I would be more financially secure.
Okay.
And that's going to happen.
Yes.
Um,
And with the help of our listeners and viewers, it's going to happen too. Ooh, that's a challenge.
I want a boob job. Okay, I'm just putting it out there.
I knew you were going to say the boobs.
I totally want. These, my friends, are Amazon bought. I can send you the link to them, and for $36, you can have a pair of breasts of your very own. And I like them, okay, but I really want my own breasts.
Yeah.
I really do.
That's fair.
And actually, I'm going to start hormone replacement therapy in about a month, and I'm very excited about that. I really am.
I am too. When we talked to Avery on one of our first episodes in the Gaily Dose, she spoke wonders about how it just made her feel better, and ultimately she was very pleased with it. And I can't wait to see that for you.
I have always been able to cry at the drop of a hat. Happy tears, sad tears. It didn't matter. I could be in a movie and I would just start to cry and weep, and it was all I could do to hide that. You know, it was hard. And now I'm sure once I go on hormones, I'll just walk outside and catch the side of some concrete and just start weeping.
Well, we will see, because but who knows?
Who knows?
We are going to follow you in that journey, though,
okay.
on this show. I can't wait to explore that with you and our dolls. Thank you so much for giving us a piece of you.
Thank you, honey.
Yeah.
I love you. I have to tell you, I love what the Gaily Dose has done for my life. You never know what's going to happen in your life. And when you put things out there that you want to do things, and you open yourself up to greater things and broader things, the universe has a very mysterious way of reaching out to you. And you just start connecting with people over and over and over again. And I'll share this, that in my little segment called what do we call it?
Transnotion.
Thank you, Transnotions. I have something really fun to share with you about that. So, honey, life is good, and I am living my very best life so far.
Well, we are glad.
Without a doubt.
Cheers.
Thank you, hon. Oh.
Dolls everywhere unite. It's the call to Kiki.
All right, dolls. So we're going to wrap this up with a nice, cute call to Kiki. Diane, would you do us a favor?
Sure. What does call to Kiki mean?
Oh, okay. Okay, so dolls, remember, call to Kiki is when we ask you, our listeners, to connect with your other dolls. One of the important principles in mental health good practice is connection with our families.
Oh.
And in our queer world, and in many people's worlds, even in the straight world, it's hard to always go to your family for the mental health support you need.
Okay.
So it is our call to connect with your other dolls.
Okay, I think I understand.
All right.
Okay, so our call to Kiki is ringing.
Ring.
Hey! Oh, call to Kiki? Sure. So really what that means, and what we want you to do, is connect with your friends, especially in this time of COVID or past COVID. You've come to know some people, but you haven't really gotten to know them. We, Helmut and I, say it would be great if you really get to know that person on a deeper level. I know sometimes it's easy to keep your friends kind of at a distance, but real connections, real deep friendship connections, are built on these moments of genuine honesty. So our encouragement, don't you say? Wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely.
Is get with your friends and have a deep dive, just like Helmut and I did today. was really fun. I learned things about you. Did you learn things about me?
I certainly did.
Did you really?
I did.
Ooh.
Many.
Do I need to be embarrassed?
No, not at all.
Yes. Yes.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. We can connect to that next level, and it's a beautiful thing.
Oh.
Yeah. And I would say, dolls, that is part of what we're doing with Hues of Humanity. We're asking you to take a double click into people that are different than you, that present differently, whether it's because I'm gay or trans or non-binary, and give that extra look in to understand other people that are part of the human fabric.
Hear, hear, honey.
Right?
Cheers. That calls for cheers.
It
Well
does.
done. Well said.
And we remind you, dolls, remember to love yourself. Learn to love yourself. Learn to love other people from that self, and always smile.
Yay! Mwah! Bye, kids.